No, but while I'm back there in the 60s, there
Yeah,
is one other story I'd like to tell you as long as we're
sure.
doing.
Yeah, please.
That concerns, it's sort of a two-part story. This is about Lightnin Hopkins. Lightnin Hopkins was one of the first of the real, um, well, what Sam Charters called country bluesmen, that is acoustic guitar, finger picking blues guys, that I was aware of. I guess the first one was really Josh White, and then Brownie McGee and Sonny Terry. They were part of the New York folk scene, um, and but and Big Bill Brunzi, who was part of that crowd in a sense, and had been recorded by Folkways Records, so Folkies knew of him. Um, but the first, and they were all real and authentic, and they were great. But the first really funky older blues musician that then grabbed my attention, and not me alone, was Lightnin Hopkins. Um, an album had come out on Folkways. Sam Charters, who was a folklorist and collector, he had gone to Texas looking for Lightnin Hopkins, who had recorded a lot of things for a lot of labels in the 40s and early 50s. And he found him in Houston and recorded him in a hotel room.
You know
And
what year
Folkways
that was?
issued, what's that?
You know what year that was? Or roughly?
50, 58, 59, maybe
Okay.
sometime around that time. Just holding a microphone and Lightnin sitting on the bed drinking whiskey and doing these blues. And Folkways issued it, still have it, and it was just great. Penitentiary blues, and he goes into his thing. So I was a Lightnin fan, and I guess I was around 15. Yeah, maybe a little older, somewhere around 1960, 61, probably 62, maybe. My friend Marshall and I went to a Pete Seeger concert at Town Hall in Philadelphia, and he had as a special guest Lightnin Hopkins. Pete was doing a bunch of concerts with Lightnin in tow. Very, very strange combination. I can't imagine two different human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pete, the puritanical do-gooder, and Lightnin, the hip cat from down south, you know, the black side of town, the whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking, Ray-Ban wearing bluesman. But somehow, I mean, Lightnin did some songs on his own, and they did a few things together. And Pete was great at being able to do that, at being able to blend in and work with other very disparate musicians. Anyway, we were sitting right up close, and I noticed that Lightnin had this large sort of paisley thumb pick. And I had a large paisley thumb pick right in my pocket. So after the concert, we went backstage. We always went backstage, and we always found out where the party was and got ourselves into the party. And there was Lightnin standing kind of by himself. I went over and I said, that was great. Yeah, and he just sort of nodded. And I said, I have a thumb pick just like yours. You know, I was a kid, 16 or something like that. I said, you want to swap thumb picks? So he said, sure. He didn't give a shit. He really could have cared less. So we swapped thumb picks, and I had Lightnin Hopkins thumb pick. And, you know, I'm
Nice.
looking at it, and I'm touching it, and I'm playing with it, and we're heading down to. Before we got out of the building and down to the street, I had two halves of Lightnin Hopkins thumb pick, which I didn't keep. I should have kept both halves. But anyway, that was, I don't know, there's some kind of lesson in that, but I'm not sure I learned it. The next day, I think, we were at this coffee house called the Gilded Cage, where there was folk music on Sundays. And we knew that Lightnin was staying with a friend of ours, a fellow named Jerry Ricks, became known in later days as Philadelphia Jerry Ricks. He was about my age, maybe a little older, a black guy who was sort of Philadelphia's black folky. You know, most of the people involved in the folk music revival and movement were white. There were some very notable exceptions, especially among performers of Detta and Leon Bibb and others, and of course people like Brownie and Sonny. But Jerry was the only young black guy that I knew of who was involved in folk music stuff, and he became involved working at the Second Fret, the coffee house that presented a lot of people. And pretty quickly, because of his knowledge of traditional music, he became the person who booked the traditional acts and who often um, gave them lodging and led them around the city. So anyway, Lightnin was staying at his house in downtown, at his apartment in downtown Philadelphia.
Okay.
So Marshall and I decided, let's go hang out with Lightnin Hopkins at Jerry's house. So we had our guitars with us and we went down there. It was a gray, kind of misty, rainy day, a grim kind of day. And at Jerry's apartment, Lightnin was standing by the window, Ray-Bans on, looking out at the street, just standing there, leaning against the side of the window and staring out at the street. I assume he was staring. He had these Ray-Bans on, which every time I saw him, and in most movies or films I've seen of him, he always had them on. And there he was on this rainy day with his Ray-Bans. And we talked, we chit-chatted with Jerry a little bit. And then finally, one of us, I don't know who it was either me or Marshall, I don't think it was Jerry, said, Lightnin, yeah. I said, you want to play some blues? And he just looked at us. And even with the Ray-Bans, it was like the most disdainful look I've ever received in my life. And this guy was the epitome of cool, the kind of cool that just couldn't be bothered by anything. He was just, he was his own man for sure. So he had this disdainful look through the Ray-Bans, and he just looked at us and shook his head and he said, no, man, I'm too blue for the blues.
Wow.
That was our chance to play music with Lightnin Hopkins, but he was too blue for the blues that day.
That's almost just as good.
Yeah, it makes a great story, I think.